Hey everyone, welcome back to the David Mathas podcast. This is podcast number, I completely lost track at this point, but you will see it on the thumbnail. So I have a really special guest today. Kristen Dunsmore is here with me. Kristen is someone who I followed for a long time, have connected with over social media. She is an elite level powerlifter, and I thought that she was a perfect guest to come on here and get a female's perspective from a strength about strength training, competing in powerlifting. She's also very educated. She went to the University of Tampa and has her master's in human performance, right? Is that what
Actually, so I have my bachelor's from University of Tampa.
Oh, bachelor.
And then my master's is at Syracuse University.
Oh, okay. Had them backwards.
Yeah.
So you obviously are familiar with where I'm at here in Tampa. Although
Yes.
we never met each other while we were here.
Yep.
Now live out in San Diego, which, I actually just filled you in the other day that I lived out there for about 6 months in Ocean Beach. And
Yeah.
whenever you post that Sunset Cliffs thing in your stories, it just brought back so many memories.
Aww.
So beautiful out there. Although, man, is it expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, the cost of living in basically all of California.
What part of San Diego are you in?
So right now I actually live in downtown.
Okay.
Which is nice because it's just close to everything. Probably not ideal as far as cost of living, but it's nice. And I've been there since 2018. So it's been about 3 years now that I've lived there.
What took you out there?
Work initially. So I had started working initially when I kind of first got into powerlifting. We can kind of backtrack a little bit afterwards. But Chad had a gym in Orange County. And so initially the plan was to go out there and I was going to work for Juggernaut and train. He decided to close down the gym. So everything that we did was remote. And at the time I was living in Orange County and it's more family. It's nice, but just, I didn't really know anyone. So at the time it was like, well, do I want to go to LA or San Diego? Because those are kind of like the two bigger cities. And I'm not sure I love LA either. So I kind of transitioned to San Diego and yeah.
LA is an interesting area. I thought for the longest time I wanted to live in LA. And I also wanted to live in San Francisco. And I'm glad I went to San Diego for a little bit, but I just realized I needed to come back home and stuff like that. So you chose San Diego. You chose to live in that way. Probably smart choice on your part. So
yeah, it's nice, except I feel like for a long time it was like a hidden gem, and then everyone kind of recently discovered it. So now everyone's trying to locate to San Diego. And I'm actually trying to leave San Diego. I think you and I talked about this with me eventually moving back to Tampa. But that's kind of a work in progress at the moment. So we'll see.
There you go. So obviously, I introduced you before. You're very, very well educated, very knowledgeable on strength training. How did you? Let's go back in history, like young Kristen. Where did you?
Yeah.
How did you get into it? Were you an athlete in other sports before, or what?
So this is actually the funny story because my history, being in Tampa. He's not there anymore, but the who shall not be named.
Yeah.
Do you know who I'm referring to?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll leave it at that. He was there when I was at Tampa and it was his first year. So my involvement in, the lab was the HMB study.
Gotcha.
So yes. So anyway, so for those who are listening,
listeners will kind of decipher.
They'll put it all together. Yeah. So I went to University of Tampa in around 2011, 2012. And I had started taking a class and there was a professor, the who shall not be named. And he was super interesting at the time. I was really impressed because I was into lifting, but I didn't really know how to go from there. I just knew that I enjoyed it. Yeah. And when I met him, the only way that I could explain it at the time was he was a bro with a PhD.
Yep.
So
a really good description.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, now there's plenty, but at the time, this was we didn't have social media the way that we do now. So he was it. So I kind of just like asked him what he did. I wanted to get involved in the lab. And he said yes. Basically, what he told me was like, yeah, you can work in the lab, but if you're gonna lift, like you're gonna lift. Essentially, like you can't lift like a girl kind of thing is, I guess, in not so many words.
For people that are listening, 2011, I mean, we're going to get into how women have evolved in strength training.
Yeah.
But like women were not really lifting much back then at all.
No. And at the time, yeah, there was not a lot at all. But yeah, so at the time it was like me and one other girl who were in the lab, and then everyone else was either male, and all of the like study participants were all male. So it was like me and two other girls, and we would do the workouts. And that was kind of my initial introduction to powerlifting, because the training protocol, I think Mike Zordos was the one who actually helped with that. So it was like a DUP traditional kind of strength training block over the course of 12 weeks. And so that was kind of like my introduction into powerlifting, or even like what powerlifting was, because I had no idea. And so that was like 2011, 2012.
Now, had you played sports like in high school or anything before that? Did you grow up?
Yeah. So I played basketball. So I played like mainstream sports, endurance sports, basketball, soccer, and I ran track. So I don't want to say
track or cross countries in there somewhere.
Yeah. So I ran, which was very different than what I do as powerlifting. But yeah, so I was involved in sports, obviously a little bit different than powerlifting, but yeah. So funny, so that was 2011, 2012 when I was at University of Tampa, or UT. And I actually didn't compete in my first meet until 2014. So it pretty much
actually a smart thing to do. So many people want to just jump into a meet right away, and it's like,
yeah,
give yourself some time. Like give yourself
some
time to build up that strength.
Yeah, well, there's that, but I was also, and this is kind of hopefully this helps women, or just anyone in general. My reasoning for not competing is because I was so scared. I would always find a reason to not do the meet. And so I wasn't ready, or I would kind of like talk myself out of it. So it took me 2 years to grow a pair to actually do a meet.
So that's really interesting as far as just thinking about like the mentality behind it.
Yeah.
What do you think it was that was holding you back? Do you think it was just the fact there weren't a whole lot of women doing it, or were people in your ear saying, oh, women can't do this? Like, what was it?
So actually a lot of my people that I was close to were actually very encouraging. It wasn't people telling me I wasn't ready or I wasn't strong, because at the time I was very strong and competitive. It was just me having to get out of my own head, and me kind of, internally saying, I'm not strong enough. I'm going to wait. I can't do this. I get like performance anxiety, or I used to really bad, which is funny now that I do what I do. But yeah, so it took me 2 years to pretty much do my first meet, to the point where I think my mom had actually signed me up for the meet, because she was just like, I paid for this, now you're going to do it.
Right. Financial commitment kind of pushes you
Yeah.
a little bit.
So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to do this meet. And so the meet was Northeast Iron Beast. I think it was in Albany, New York, or kind of the outskirts of Albany. And it was me and maybe 3 or 4 other girls.
Oh, okay.
The whole meet. Yeah. So talk about, the change. It was 3 women. I ended up placing first overall, compared to 4 women. But that actually, I qualified for nationals that year. And so once I competed in my first meet, I caught the bug. I was like, when's the next meet? I want to do one next week. Like, let's go, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so my next meet was Raw Nationals 2014 in Denver, Colorado. Yeah. And I think that was the first one that Lane did as well. Yeah. And so that was a meet. I competed as a 63 kilo lifter and I placed third. So it was like Jen Thompson.
Oh, you were in
This
Jen's
girl.
class at that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to compete as a 63. Gosh, I can't think of the girl who placed second, but her and I tied. No, she wasn't tied. No, she must have like beat me by like 2.5 kilos, but I placed third overall after my first national.
Third
So.
nationally in your second overall meet. That's
Yep.
pretty amazing. You know,
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear, you know, someone at your level now talking, and hopefully for the women that are listening to this, but also for the men too, that like it's okay to be terrified to jump into something
Yeah.
right away. It doesn't mean that that should hold you back. Like it's a very natural feeling, but I find so many people they're just afraid to make that first step. And
Yep.
you know, maybe it is going to take someone like a mom or a friend or somebody to push you. That's okay.
Yeah.
Look how quickly you got hooked on it. Like,
Oh, after that first meet, I was like ready to go. And that's kind of, I think, even with my own clients, you know, they're kind of similar where they're nervous and then they do their meet and then it's, they're like, all right, let's go. This is great.
do you remember what your total was for that first meet?
I don't. I think I remember it was 150 kilo squat, which was 330 pounds. I think 176 pounds, which what is that, like maybe 80 kilos, I think.
Kind of right borderline there.
And then 380 pounds. So that's what, like 170 kilos, I think.
Okay.
175. Yeah, I don't remember. Like it was something along those lines. So probably about almost 100 pounds less than my latest total. So
that first opening squat that you had at that first powerlifting meet, what was going through your head at that time?
I was so nervous. I think it actually helped me because I tend to overthink sometimes, and especially if you're lifting and you have all these cues in your head and you're like, do this, and breathe and brace. I was so nervous that I couldn't think. And
just kind of zoned out and just did it.
I kind of, yeah. And so it actually helped me because I just went in and got right up. And I remember like, racking the bar. And I'm like, wow, that was really easy. Which that doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately. But
so what would you say for woman or a man right now listening, going into their first powerlifting meet? Maybe they've done other sports in the past. Maybe they're like you, they're venturing into this for the first time.
Yeah.
What is something that when you came away from that first meet, you're like, oh, I wish I would have known this prior to going into it? Is there anything?
For my first meet or for
tell
nationals?
people, like, don't try to cut for your first powerlifting meet. Just weight you fall in, just go into it. You're probably not going to be like Kristen and win right off the bat on your first show for your first meet anyways. But I just tell people, don't worry about cutting weight. Just learn the cues. You're going to be nervous when you get up there. Just go through it and then learn for the second one. Yeah.
So same thing. I usually say if this is your first meet, don't cut weight. I say have fun. You're probably not going to break any records unless you're, and if you are, you're an anomaly.
Right.
But 99% of the people, 99.9 even, probably are not going to do anything crazy their first meet. So have fun. And so usually, I say my recommendation is to go 9 for 9 and, to go into that meet or to leave the meet feeling good and feeling like, wow, that was, I had a good time. I pushed myself, but I definitely left room in the tank. And that kind of gives you momentum to like move forward. And, kind of gauge how you compete in competition. So for me, I got so nervous that like my adrenaline like can benefit me. And I actually oftentimes will perform better in a meet than I do in training. Whereas some people can, maybe they do really well in training and then they just kind of freeze on the platform and it hinders them. So it kind of gives you a good indication of how you react or how you deal with stress during competition.
So going from that first meet into your second meet, what was nationals that year. What
Yeah.
did your mentality shift between the
Oh,
two?
I was still nervous. I still woke up super early that morning. I don't think I slept at all that night. Don't recommend not doing sleep. But just, I was so, oh my God, I'm competing tomorrow. I was so nervous. But at least because I had done it before, I knew what to expect. So I was still nervous and I still felt everything that I had felt, but at least I had that previous experience. So I knew what to expect going forward. And I kind of knew how I would respond to training competing on a platform.
But I mean, how can you ever really prepare for Gino announcing a powerlifting? Right?
You can't.
I love
He
that
actually
guy.
makes it fun. He's
I
so
love
fun. Yeah.
that.
For those who don't know, Gino has been actually he pretty much has announced most of my meets that I've competed in, and he always makes it super exciting.
I've gone to like some smaller
Yeah.
USAPL meets and stuff, and like he's there. He's just everywhere. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
The guy's
Yeah.
he makes it fun. He makes it a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy.
I'm really interested to hear your take on this because obviously now, women are more prone, I think, overall to go into like physique competition, physique sports, bikini mostly.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that over the last 5 years, maybe longer, 5 to 10 year stretch, we've seen a lot more women getting into strength sports. What do you
Yeah.
think has been the main driver of that?
To be honest, probably social media
Yeah.
is a huge component. I think, you see women lifting and lifting weights that are, when you see a woman deadlifting over 400 pounds, you're like, whoa, like that's a lot of weight. But then you see women, and maybe this is just like their preconceived like notion of what, a strength athlete is. And because I was guilty of this myself, is I was always under the impression if I'm going to lift heavy, I'm going to get bulky, right? Like that's kind of, I think, every woman's mentality. And then you see these women who are lifting this, a lot of weight, and then they're still, they're still feminine, or what we perceive as feminine. And I think that it's encouraging to say, okay, you know what, if I do lift this, or if I do focus on strength training, I'm not going to be the IFBB pro bodybuilder.
Right.
I'm not going to have that physique.
Absolutely. No, you hit it on the head. I think social media, this is one of the things that social media has been really great about, is
Yeah.
helping promote this and showing women that like lifting weights does not have to be scary. Like I said, lifting weights is not going to make you big and bulky. I think it's really empowered a lot of women to see people like you, like Jen Thompson, like some of these more elite level power lifters over the last 5 to 7 years or so. You guys have been really good ambassadors for it. And I find a lot more women now come to me for coaching that are more interested in getting stronger, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, they still want to look good. Who doesn't want to look
good?
But it's not like, okay, how much cardio can I do? It's how can I incorporate weight training and getting stronger into it and everything. And I just love that. As a coach and just as a father now of a little girl, like, I love seeing that there's positive role models out there. Because listen, physique sports are great. They're great. Nothing against them, but they can kind of mess with someone's psyche a little bit.
For sure.
I know there's cutting and stuff like that when it comes to weight class, but it's nowhere near physique focused. However, even with the men nowadays, like people don't get like sloppy physiques like they used to with powerlifting, right? Like nutrition is such a vital component of training now, especially in powerlifting, obviously more than it used to be. You hear the guys just go slam 3 or 4 Big Macs and a large pizza at night, just trying to get their weight up. But people
as big as possible,
on, powerlifting and bodybuilding, that kind of combination of training and eating for performance, eating for health and stuff. So as far as like your nutrition goes and everything, how do you approach that? Do you do you take times during the year where you cut? Do you take times where obviously you're bulking up? How, for the women that are listening, how do you handle your?
Yeah. So, with powerlifting, it's obviously my physique doesn't matter, but there are weight classes.
Exactly.
So you still have to be a certain body weight. Now it doesn't matter how you look at that body weight, but there still are weight classes. And so for me, like I have to cut weight. I used to have to cut a lot of weight. And when I was
69 class now?
Yes. And that's a new class. So for a long time, it was the 63 kilo class and then the 72. And so when I first started, I was a 63. And then, as I've continued lifting and I've gained some lean mass and so I've gained weight in a good way, but cutting to 63 was just no longer feasible because I would have to get so lean that it would, compromise my performance. So I ended up moving up a weight class. And then for a while, it was me
I
trying to.
I think it's really important to point out there is that like weight increase, guys, does not mean fat always, right? Like she
Yeah.
a lot of muscle over the years and stuff too. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
going to make getting down to a certain weight a lot harder and everything. And with powerlifting, you start cutting too much, flush out those electrolytes. You're not, you don't have any glycogen in your muscle.
Yeah.
Like you can't expect to be performing at your best. So that's where it's better to just go ahead and move up at that point.
Yeah. And when I used to cut to 63s, I would cut carbs. That was my go-to. And so now we know, maybe for performance, that's probably not ideal. So my nutrition has obviously changed over the years as well. But then there was a period where I decided to move up a weight class, but I was also small for that class. So then I was trying to mass. So luckily, now that they've created the new 69 kilo weight class, I probably I walk around at like 70, 71. So I don't have a lot to cut. Yeah, it's a pretty easy weight cut for me. And so in that case, it's just me kind of being a little bit more diligent of, what I'm eating. But I don't have to do anything drastic. No water cut or anything.
About how far out from, let's just say nationals, for example, right?
Yeah.
When would your meet training block start? Like, when would you start prepping for that?
I would like to say I'm always prepping in a sense, but the focus is different. So right now I don't have a meet until I plan on competing in March at the Arnold, but obviously this whole IPF USAPL thing is anyway. So it's up in the air.
I don't even know where it stands right now, to be honest.
I don't even know either. So tentatively, I'm about 6 months out.
Yeah.
So right now I'm still working on, singles, but I'm not in a peaking block per se. And a lot of my training is going to be focused on maybe areas of, I don't want to say weaknesses because I would not call myself weak, but areas that I can improve.
Absolutely.
But a meet prep, I would probably say about 12 weeks is a normal meet prep for myself.
Yeah. And just the reason I ask is there's a lot of people that'll be like, oh, there's a meet, in 3 weeks I want to sign up for. You should probably give yourself a little bit more time than 3 weeks. But there is something to be said for just, going in and having fun too, if it's a local, little local meet and everything. But if you're really wanting to get serious about it and you really want to compete, obviously training, nutrition are going to be vital and everything. How do you tend to organize your training blocks throughout the year? Like you said, right now you're kind of focusing more on heavy singles and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Do you go into a period where you're doing higher reps, things like that? Like, how do you tend to break it down? Are you doing more like DUP style all the time, or just walk us through training a little bit?
So this is a very interesting question too, because I am actually changed coaches after nationals over the summer. I decided that it was time for a change. So I'm now working with Zach Robinson from Data Driven Strength.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's Mike Zordos. I think he's back in school for a PhD under Mike Zordos. So my training has actually shifted pretty significantly from what I was doing before, which was like a traditional block periodization where you're doing like a hypertrophy, strength, peak. Where Zach kind of takes a more, a different approach. And then also because of like, I've had, I guess, injuries or pain.
Mhm.
So that's been a focus, is trying to desensitize that area and getting me back to training. But yeah, I mean, the concept is still the same. So we're still working up to like conservative singles. And then my back offsets, you know, at a lower load, higher volume. And actually, since working with Zach, interestingly, my volume has shifted from the main movement. So instead of doing a lot of, you know, like a squat and then back off squats on like back offs with the squat, which is I still do, but maybe instead of, you know, I'm doing 2 back off sets, 2 or 3 instead of like 5 or 6 like I used
Oh,
to.
okay.
And so he actually does where your back off sets or your hypertrophy volume comes from, like a hack squat or a leg press or like non-specific movements. And I think that's helped me tremendously, just because, you know, when you're squatting and benching and dead, like that repetitive over time, like it just, I mean, not only mentally, but like physical, like in some cases, like for some people, I think it can, you know, that takes a toll on your body.
No, it sure does. And you mentioned injuries. What sort of injury is like, what are you trying to overcome right now?
So I had, I guess, I mean, this was, you know, speaking with a PT over like Skype. So there was no like official diagnosis, but he basically said it sounds like there's a glute tendinopathy, which is basically like very generic for like glute pain, pretty much.
I'm that's
And
kind of weird you say that. I'm actually experiencing some of that myself. Earlier this year I had foot surgery back in like January, and I had my big toe was fused together. It was an old army.
oh, geez.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and for over 3 months, like my leg was up at 90 degrees on a scooter. Like that's how I had to get around. And
Yeah.
laying around, sitting on the couch, I couldn't do anything. And
Yeah.
then I started trying to run again about a few months ago, and it was going all right for a little bit. But I think my glute, my hamstring, everything shortened up, and it threw my hip off. And now I'm dealing with that glute tendinopathy issue right now. It is horrible.
So frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Obviously, yours is a little bit further ahead because I can't even get outside and run or do anything like that, like let alone try to lift right now. But I'm still early in on it, so we'll see what happens. But I know the pain, so go ahead.
Yeah. So that was our priority for a long time. And honestly, doing the like non-specific movements have actually allowed me to do that high, heavy volume without there being pain.
Okay.
So that's been nice. And I think that's kind of like the way that powerlifting programming will essentially transition to, which is kind of interesting right now, because I feel like, you know, we're in a really interesting period of powerlifting, because for a long time there really wasn't that research on like you know, the DUP with like Zordos, you know, like, so we had stuff, but I feel like within the last, you know, maybe 3 years is where we've really started to see research specifically on, you know, powerlifting training, which has been really cool, because it's I think it's shifting pretty significantly to what we have been doing in the past.
And for people that don't know, we keep saying DUP. Explain to people what DUP is. I'm sure they're like, what are they talking about?
So in the most basic sense, DUP is daily undulating periodization. So I said that I was doing a form of block periodization, which is like a hypertrophy block, then a strength block, and then a peaking block. Well, DUP would essentially incorporate, well, not maybe peaking, but power. So powerlifting, hypertrophy, strength, and power, instead of doing it over different training blocks, you're basically doing that in the same week. So 1 week would be your hypertrophy day, day 2 would be your power day, and then day 3 would be your strength day. And that's kind of, I think, especially in powerlifting, is where the programming and training seems to be transitioning to, which is I'm pretty excited about.
I was gonna say, I mean, now that you've kind of gone through to, you know, both styles and everything, are you leaning more towards DUP being like your ideal?
Well, I mean, maybe my bias because I enjoy it more just as a power lifter. I like doing, heavy singles to begin with.
That's important, though. Enjoying your training
Yeah,
goes a long way in how you're going to be effective with it.
exactly. So that's number one, but just, practicing the skill of the movement. And so in the past, when I would do like my hypertrophy block, I would do 3 sets of 10 or like I've done like 6 sets of 8 on low bar competition back squat. And yeah, like 6 sets of 8, like that's just a lot, and it just, my body just,
Especially if you're lifting with the sort of weight that you're lifting.
yeah. And maybe when I was 24, 25 and, like new to lifting, I could handle it. But now it's like, my body is just like, this is, this is a lot.
I'm going to be 37 next month. And I'm just like, if I could even just go back 3 years,
Yeah.
body felt at 34, like I would take that right now.
Yeah.
Let alone if I go back 10 years to when I was 27.
Oh my gosh.
What I wouldn't give
So
to know now what I knew back, or to know back then.
exactly.
So,
Oh my God. So, yeah, so just from like, number one, just like enjoyment of training. I find that I enjoy doing the heavier singles, but it's also, when I say heavy singles, I'm not like maxing out every week. It's just, working up to a conservative single to practice skill of the movement or, practice how you play. Which
this is important. How often, just for the people that are listening, how often do you test your maxes?
I mean, before, so like the thing is, yeah. So like my coaching, because it's different, so we haven't tested yet, but there hasn't been a need to, because I'm not, in comp, like I'm not prepping for a meet. Also, the focus was kind of healing my glute. But in the past, I would say that I would probably do heavy singles once every 16 weeks, give or take.
So what you're saying is don't test your maxes every week, right?
No, I would not recommend that.
And I just say that jokingly because so many people are out there is like, I haven't tested my max in 2 weeks. I should try it. No, you should not.
No.
I know some people that don't ever test their max until they get on the platform. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much central nervous system fatigue that happens. Like, and you actually mentioned something that, I wasn't going to touch on or bring up, but you said, strength is a skill. Like practicing that movement. That's why it's not the same as hypertrophy training. Like training for maximal strength and training for muscle size are two completely separate things.
Yeah. And when I would do like the 6, I'm just saying 6 sets of 8 because that's just what is engraved in my head. Low bar competition back squat. The quality of my reps would go down. So it would get to the point where like it didn't matter. Like I needed to get it done. So like the quality of those reps would it's like they'd go to shit. I would just need to get down and up, and that's all that mattered.
Right.
So, yeah, you're getting involved, but like, is that ideal? Like, because the quality is crap anyway. So you're better off doing, instead of 6x8 like I was doing, maybe like a 3x8, and then doing your, more back offs with, the leg press, where you could probably get away with doing a little bit more volume, and it's not really going to hinder the quality of your training.
To it too. I mean, if you start doing a bunch of back down sets with a bar on your back and you start fatiguing, you have a lot more opportunity to create an injury or worsen an injury, right? And then you're going to be out of training for so long. Not that there's not a risk with like hack squat or leg press. I mean, there's anytime you have heavy weight there is, but I mean, you get a little fatigued, you lean forward a little bit more than you want to with that bar on your back. And I mean, you're asking for a world of hurt.
Yeah. And then, I mean, just preaching to the choir, I've, this glute issue that I've had was 3 years on and off. So, it
happened during a meet or during
no, it just happened in training. It just one day I was lifting and, oh, that doesn't feel good, and kind of ignore it, and kind of forget about it until I squat again. And I'm like, oh, that's still there. That feels kind of weird. And, I kind of just progressively got worse.
Your hamstrings at all?
No, it was literally isolated to my right butt cheek, right in the middle.
Mine's in my right too, but it's kind of gone down in my hamstrings a little bit too.
Oh, really? Yeah. So luckily it's localized to my right glute, but it's just a nice little stabbing pain right till as soon as I hit depth.
So, moving forward, like obviously you're going to try to do Arnold in March and everything.
Mhm.
Do you have any sort of goal for that meet? Do you have a total that you're trying to aim for? Are you looking to, just increase one certain aspect of the 3 lifts? Like what are your goals
Yeah.
for the Arnold?
I mean, obviously I would like to PR all my lifts. That's, kind of a given. But beyond that, I would like to PR all my lifts pain free and be able to do what I know that I'm capable of. So these past couple of meets, I would lift, but I would, like even at nationals, like my glute was hurting, so it hurt on squats. It didn't really hurt on deadlift, but it probably like mentally, kind of affected my deadlift.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to be able to lift pain free, go 9 for 9, because my last like at nationals I went 5 for 9, which at the national level, like that just shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? Like I've been competing long enough I know how to lift.
Injury? A lot.
Yeah, so yeah, I would say so for squat and I missed my third bench, but that was just a strength issue. I think, like there's nothing I can do there. Just get stronger.
That's really the answer for a lot of things is
Yeah.
Get stronger. Just give it more time. Get stronger.
Yeah, but I would say for squats, it was lifting and being in pain. That didn't help, of course. So yeah, I think just being able to do what I know that I'm capable of, like pain free. If I can get a training cycle without being in pain, I think that'll help.
So, going from 2014, your first meet now, and it's gonna be 2022, which is so weird.
Yeah.
When you're gonna have your next meet.
8 years.
Yeah, that's a good amount of time. So in that amount of time, obviously going from super nervous and anxious for the first one, how do you approach these national level meets now? Like, how has your mentality shifted as an athlete?
I would say I still get nervous, but it's not the same. It's nerves like, okay, let's go, you're up. Like let's do this, let's go. Whereas before I was,
that you listen to?
I do. You guys are gonna laugh. Low Life by The Weeknd is like my hype song. And not because of the lyrics, because but the bass, like it gets me hyped. So that's my song.
Hey, to each their own. I mean, I know people that listen to classical music before they go on. They listen to Disney music. It's like, someone asked me the other day on my stories, they're like, what music do you listen to when you're working out and training and stuff? And to be honest, my training's been shit for a long time now, just because I've got a nerve issue I'm dealing with too. But I was like, I mostly listen to podcasts or I listen to country music, and they're like,
yeah,
you can listen to country music when you train? I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It just whatever gets you in that right headspace to train.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that like in most cases I can listen to anything, but if I'm going to, and this is also why I would not recommend maxing out, is there's still like I would argue to say that this goes for most elite lifters, but like to max out requires a lot of mental stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
And so like trying to get that week after week after week is a lot. Like sometimes it's just I need to go to I don't want to think, I just need to just lift, and mentally maybe I'm not in the workout. And so
it's kind of like a drug too. Like at some point, if you do it so much over and over, you're going to need more and more and more to achieve that outcome. Like for example, like caffeine. Before, do you cut any caffeine out like a week before the meet or anything, and then add it back in so your body's resensitized or anything?
I personally don't. I know people who do, but I'm sorry, I'm not going a week without caffeine.
I feel you on that one.
Which goes to show you that maybe I should.
Well, I mean, it would be an interesting experiment to see, like,
Oh, I would be so miserable.
See, that's the thing. That's what I don't know people that do. I mean, I do know people that do that, but as far as, I mean, you're going to spend like the first 3 days just miserable and having headaches and withdrawals. What's the point? Just keep taking it.
Yeah. So and I mean, in fairness, I don't really take pre-workout like that. I'm a coffee drinker. So, I drink my coffee in the day, probably throughout the day. So I probably don't need pre-workout.
No, I would say not. I would say not.
Yeah.
So as far as, obviously looking forward to the Arnold in 2022, where do you see the future of powerlifting going for women? Like, there's obviously yourself, there's a few other that are, very vocal and very, very good advocates for it. What would you like to see moving forward over the next 5 years when it comes to women in the sport? Maybe certain lifting milestones you want to see broken, or participation rules, or whatever you want. Like, what do you see as the future of women powerlifting?
So this is probably going to change. I mean, you can probably agree with this too. This is going to be more of like, I guess, from an academic standpoint rather than powerlifting itself. I would say that, like, yeah, so from a research component, the lack of female like participants. So like we talk about the research that's we've, for powerlifting specific, whether it's training, recovery, most of that research has been done in men. And that's fine, nothing wrong with that. We can probably hypothesize that, it'll probably be similar to women, but, sometimes it's nice to have that, with female participants. Yeah. So kind of like what I want to do with my own research, and hopefully the sport itself, is getting more women involved. And so by doing that means more women being involved in the sport. So getting, having women who are lifting, I'm sure your masters, you realize that like majority of your research is going to come from like college students, or the participants are going to be college students, between 18 and 23 years old. And probably for resistance training, it's going to be male. I think women may not be as interested in lifting heavy weights.
We actually did it wasn't my design,
yeah,
but we did a female, it was a female like recovery type.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Upper body and lower body and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think the findings were something like women's lower body tends to recover a lot quicker than even men's do and stuff.
Yeah.
However, upper body was different. Like upper body
a
little weaker and stuff like that. How do you find with your own training? What is your weakness, right? Like, is it bench? Is it deadlift? Is it squat? What would you say?
So my weakness, I guess, I would say squats, because I can't train them how I want to because of this little butt issue that I got going on.
That right cheek.
That right cheek just doesn't want to cooperate. So, like I said, I haven't really pushed it. I've been going super light, like even 50% or less than my max, just to like desensitize that area. And just, hey, it's okay to, your body's not going to freak out if you hit the steps. So I would say right now it's definitely squats, not because I think I'm weak in them. They're probably for a long time was my best lift.
Yeah.
In fact, but yeah, if you can't train, you're obviously not going to get stronger in that lift. So, that's kind of where I'm at.
Do you have any study ideas like that you've been thinking about that you want to try to?
Yeah. So right now, because the courses that I'm taking are online, but I'm lucky enough.
Where are you taking them through?
Concordia University, Chicago. So it's an online program. And then for your dissertation or your research, you can actually go to the university, or I was lucky enough to get involved with the kinesiology department at Point Loma, Nazareth University it's in San Diego, and they have a really cool sport performance lab that they like just built this year. They just started a master's program. The director of the department is the president of the NSCA.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. And I had no idea. So I was like talking to him, and, afterwards they're like, said his name. And I'm like, wait, what? The president? So I'm working in there.
Right time. I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my God, that worked out so well. They have a big biomechanics lab.
Okay.
So right now what we're doing is comparing the sumo and conventional deadlift using like a 3D motion capture analysis. Right now we're just in a pilot study, but kind of comparing differences to like an elite lifter, their kinematic and kinetic changes like throughout, say low load to their 1RM and how their positioning changes. And then ultimately what I would like to do would be like to compare that to, like beginner lifters and see how their mechanics change throughout the lift. And it'd be cool to kind of incorporate women into that study. And yeah, so just kind of incorporating resistance training, but then having women participate. So that's kind of like the route that I'm going.
One of the things we were talking about, like study participants and how mostly they're college kids and stuff like that. We were fortunate at USF to have a lot of women that were interested in studies and stuff. But
that campus is huge, right? Like it's like 50,000 students or something like that.
We got a big one, but our exercise science program is really small. I loved, until I graduated, I hadn't even been like on the other side of campus the whole time I was there. But
really,
I mean, I just drove in one way, went right to the lab, and my classes.
That was it.
Stuff, and that was it. But
that's so funny.
One of the things that we ran into issues, or it wasn't an issue, it's just something that we had kind of talked about, wanting to see improving and it's difficult when you start wanting to study elite level athletes, either in powerlifting or bodybuilding or whatever, is because people don't want their programs dictated to. They don't want to follow a program. Like they have what they are following or what their coach is giving them, and they don't want to veer off.
Change.
The other problem is deciphering between trained and untrained individuals, because some people will say, oh yeah, I'm a trained individual, but they can't hit certain benchmarks when it comes to strength or whatever it is, right? So that's the thing that I would like to see change over the next 5 years, both men and women, is more elite level athletes getting into these studies, because we're going to really be able to tell a lot from that. Obviously someone that hasn't trained much, you just give them 8 to 10 weeks, they're going to show some big improvement.
They're going to get stronger and they're going to see improvements no matter what. Yeah, exactly. And so like when you're elite, are you going to see those same changes? And right now, I mean, we can speculate and, probably not, but, having sound research on elite level lifters is going to be huge. And fortunately for me, San Diego has a really good pool of powerlifters who are at least, so not so much at the university, but at the gyms. So the goal is to kind of snag some people from, these San Diego gyms to get them involved, and hopefully just having my name would help. But, it's like you said, it's when it comes to research, it's a lot harder, because you're limited by the participants who are willing to participate.
Right. I mean, count length of the study, funding, stuff like that. I mean, are some of these lifters going to be willing to do multiple training blocks and get data from it? That it's tough. So, people listen to this. I get questions a lot like, oh, is there what's the research say for this or for that? I'm like, guys, I don't think you understand. It's not that easy. Not everything is going to be research, right? Like if there's not a need for it, nobody's going to fund research. Like it's just, there's a lot that goes into it and everything. And actually I did a podcast with Dr. Campbell a while back, and
I talked about
like what's involved with research, right? Like I think there's a big misconception, but I mean, what you want to do, I hope you can do it, because I think it would be not only for my own personal enjoyment, but it'll stuff like that too. So no, that's great. I wish you luck. How much longer do you have with your program?
So I actually only started last year. I'm only 1 year in. I have another a year of classes, and then like a year for my to focus solely on my dissertation. But again, I don't that's assuming that it only takes a year. A lot of times it goes on a lot longer. And that is what it is. But I'm enjoying the process, and I've learned a lot along the way, so I can't complain.
I think to wrap it up, because I know you're in Atlanta visiting your boyfriend, and I don't want to take up all your time.
He's working till, that's why I was like, can we switch till today? Because I'm like at the hotel, like, all right, just chilling. Gonna go wander Atlanta.
What do you think is, how am I trying to phrase this? What has powerlifting taught you that has carried over into your everyday life for the better? Like, how has powerlifting improved you?
My life. So yeah, and that's a great question. So one of the things that I've noticed, and you probably noticed too, working with your clients, and just in general, right? Like the New Year's Eve or the New Year's like resolution, everyone's gonna go to the gym.
Yeah.
And maybe for the first couple of weeks they do, and then you see this like significant drop off over time.
Mhm.
And so powerlifting has kind of taught me that uh like the consistency where I've been training and going to the gym for 8+ years now. With I mean, I've probably taken some time off in between there, but I always come back. And I would say that just making it and I think I wrote a post about this, but making it a habit,
Mhm.
where it's not I'm not forcing myself to do anything that I don't want to do. It's just, I mean, there's times that I don't feel like going to the gym like that,
Well,
I'm sure you all the time, right? But um it's like I know that this is important for my health,
mhm.
right? And as I've gotten older and I'm not in my 20s anymore, like I get little aches and pains that weren't there before. And you realize that just how important like even just resistance training, not even powerlifting,
Right.
we're just talking about just lifting weights in general, the importance of that for like just overall like health and well-being and longevity, and even just for older people and preventing falls and fractures later in life, like it's huge.
100.
And
And for your
I think
health too.
and mental, yeah, so it goes beyond just being strong AF, like, which is cool, but there's so many other benefits beyond that. And so being able to continue to lift, and even if I decide I don't want to power lift anymore, I'll still go to the gym and work out.
It's become a part
um
of you.
it's a part of my
Not
life.
it's
Yeah.
not what defines you, but it's a big part of who you are and your
Yeah.
lifestyle. You're talking about habits. I love Atomic Habits. I love this.
Yeah.
Like if you guys
Yeah, that's a great book.
like
I would
every
definitely
athlete in
recommend
the
reading
world,
it.
every person should read this book. It's
Yeah.
can't recommend it enough and stuff. But I
Yeah.
think what I'm picking up is just the confidence that it's brought your life. And females, males, whoever's listening to this, weight training. Weight training is so much more than just the physical outcome, whether your physique or your performance or anything like that. I know that it
Yeah.
really helped save me. It destroyed me and saved me at the same time. Like
Yeah.
when you learn what you're capable of, and there's so many life lessons. I think especially from powerlifting, from a strength perspective, there's so many great life lessons and characteristics that you can take out of the sport that apply to your everyday life. Makes you more
That's
disciplined,
it.
makes you patient. I mean, I'm sure you can attest to this. PRs do
Yep.
not come as fast as you want them to come at all.
Nope.
Like sometimes
Nope.
you'll work your ass off for a year and you maybe get 2.5 kilogram,
Yeah.
maybe,
It's like, what did I do?
but you
But
learn a lot about yourself along the way. And
exactly.
that's what I've been really encouraged with, especially from the female perspective, as a coach, is seeing more of my clients and the confidence that it brings them. So many people still come and they're cardio bunnies, right? And you start implementing some strength training and things like that in there, and you really teach them about how this is going to benefit them long term,
Yeah.
and show them that you can get just as excited about lifting as you do about jumping on that treadmill.
And
Right?
probably more so,
I think so.
because I'm not staring at the watch or the time and being like, God, I have 20 minutes left. It's just you do your workout and then it's like, oh God, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I still, like, even myself, I know people like to, talk smack as powerlifters on cardio, but I still do cardio in my workouts.
Yeah. Because guess what, folks, cardio is not just about burning calories. Cardio, if implemented correctly,
Cardiovascular
yeah,
health.
it can improve your lifting and performance 100%. Like it is so vital. I never take cardio out of anybody's plan all year long,
Yeah.
whether
Good.
bulking or cutting
Yeah.
or whatever. But being athletic is a good thing, right? And part of being athletic is having the endurance, and you can see that it translates over into your lifts. I mean, it just makes your lifting that much better and more enjoyable, and it helps your recovery as well. So
Yeah.
Listen, I want to thank you so much.
Yeah.
Probably talk for 2 more hours, but I'll save you for another topic and we'll come back on and talk some more later on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Where can people find you, and anything you want to plug, promote, anything here?
Yeah, so I myself do powerlifting coaching. So if anyone is interested in strength training, even just general, I don't want to say too much, but you can go. Oh, okay. Well, I know you do coaching as well.
There's enough to go around. I'm not a competitive guys. I said no.
Yeah, so if you're interested in coaching with me, it's just KristenDunsmore.com. My Instagram is KRIIS_D. Don't ask me. I had that since I was probably at Tampa, and I just never changed it. So
it'll all be linked below, so they'll be able to.
Yeah, cool.
And then you've got you sponsor with Virus, right?
Yes. Yep. So I'm sponsored by Virus. If you like their clothing, you can use my code, which is KRIS10. So Chris10 for 10% off.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't?
I wasn't even I wasn't saying it out loud. If I would have said it out loud, I would have been like, oh, I see what they're doing. That's
yeah.
Cool. Well, Kristen, first of all, thanks again for coming on. It was great to finally virtually meet you. I know that you might be making your way back to Tampa someday, so hopefully, if you are,
we will catch up.
Let me know, and we'll definitely catch up.
Yeah.
But,
for sure.
Enjoy the rest of your trip in Atlanta. Have a safe trip home, and we'll talk again soon. Okay. Perfect. Sounds good. It was great meeting you, or virtually meeting you as well. Thank you. And guys, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe, share this. Go follow Kristen if you're not already. Like I said, all her stuff will be linked down below. And thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back with another episode soon.